Well, I just finished putting together our first of 3 little evening bags, clutches, whatever you want to call them. This one's really pretty, actually. I just took my time and added some nice pearls to this, and you can see the end result. Nice and sturdy. And we're about to start working on the second one. This is the copper one, and it's just kind of named based on, well, the prominent colors here. And if you put the first one together, the second one is pretty much going to go together the same way. And we're going to do it the same exact way, where we're just going to kind of start by doing some piecing and then wrap it up by actually putting it together. So without further ado, let's take a look at what we have here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with these 2 pieces here. This is the face and the back. And we've got this nice overlay here that we're going to put on here. You can see on this piece that there are a series of little score marks to help you with the positioning. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. And then also you'll notice that on one of these, there's a series of little score marks that are cut into the center. Now if you have a pattern, you may not see it very well, but it is there, and that's going to help us with another element that we're going to put on there. So let's just kind of get grooving here and get moving. And I'm just going to start by putting some glue on this little panel or overlay, whatever you want to call it. Make sure you get that glue out to the very edges here so they don't have anything peeling off. That's pretty good. And again, using those little marks there, little score marks, to help you with positioning and alignment. Get that right in place. Should have a nice even border going all the way around. And then we've got some little end caps here, these little pieces that are going to go in the corners. That's going to go on after the entire structure is completely together. Okay, we're not going to do that right now because they do, well, they're going to go over the corners literally. They're not individual pieces. So it's going to kind of make it look nice and finished though. All right, so we got our first piece on here. Okay, there we go. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to just pop this underneath my mat and let that kind of set nice and flat for us. And I'll do the other side here. And again, this one has a little overlay that goes on top of this overlay. And this is going to be our front. Okay, again, using the little notches there that are cut in that your machine does for you to help with the placement. I think I got that pretty well spot on. And just run your finger along the edges, make sure that's making good contact, nice and flat. If you have any little areas that might be peeling up, I'm just going to grab a scrap piece of paper here and show you what you can do about that. This is from my last prototype. Just a little scrap piece of paper. Just going to throw a little bit of glue right on the very end of that. And if you have any little areas that maybe you didn't get enough glue on, like down here, you can see that it's kind of lifting up, and I don't like that. Just paint a little bit of glue underneath and just press that down in that little area, and it'll sit nice and flat for you. Okay. All right, so that piece is done. No, it's not. We've got this guy here. Okay. Now this is where your magnet is going to go onto that little circle there. But this piece here, we need to just align so that the scallops match up and so that it's nice and flush with the interior there. So we're going to put glue on this entire piece. And try to get some glue out to the little scallops there. Now with the last handbag, we were working with black cardstock, and that sometimes, well, it's not very forgiving if you get too much glue. This time we've got a blue, and it's a little more forgiving, but we're still going to be very careful. And you can see here how there's a round part right at the tip of that. And make sure that you get that so that it kind of creates the illusion of a circle being there. And that's how you know that you've got it nice and centered. So that looks pretty spot on. Okay, and what we're going to do, again, there's a series of little score marks here, and the score marks are kind of like little mountains. It's like a little mountain cut. And what that is basically the outline of, let me just grab my Let me grab this so I can point to it. It's right here, this little area here. Okay, that's where you're gonna get the little score marks right tucked right under there, like so. Okay, so that's gonna sit like that, and we are gonna glue that on flat. So let's get some glue on the back of this guy here, or this gal. Okay, and again, you know, use the guides, but also just use your eyes and make sure that everything looks nice and symmetrical and nice and even. And that looks about right. If it's off by just a tad, it's not the end of the world. Okay, so we got the front and back. Those are all good. Okay, I'm gonna pop that underneath my work mat here, let it flatten out. All right, so let's take a look at our handle. Okay, just like with the last piece here. We've got some overlays. There's two sides. We're gonna glue them and kind of sandwich them together. So we're gonna do that first. And move this out of the way. Okay, so you can see that each of these pieces has a series of tabs at the bottom. You wanna kind of fold them, do a valley fold, just like that. Okay, and we're gonna glue these back to back like so. Just making sure that you get all the nice scallops there aligned correctly. And don't put any glue on the actual tabs themselves. We want them to be loose because they're going to act as anchors for the handle once we get it into its final place. Okay, and try to get a little bit of glue onto the actual scallops there. Get that matched up. And there we go. I'm flattening out the tabs, but I'm not gluing the tabs. Remember, don't glue the tabs together. Just the main part of the handle, just like that. Okay, and that looks good. Just give that a press, make sure it's all nice and set, and you can see that my tabs are not glued together. They're still like that because they're gonna go into the top of our little bag and we're gonna anchor the handle. All right, so now you can kind of adorn this thing with the little cutouts here. And as you can see, we've got little guides to help you with the placement of these so you get them all nice and centered. Everything will look nice and symmetrical. So grab your first little piece like this and let's get that in place. And that's going to go in between the little guides here on this side, and also make sure that you get them in place right there. You could probably eyeball it, but just in case, we want everything to be very consistent for you. Okay, so there's two copper pieces that are going to go on these sides here, and you'll notice that if you take these copper pieces, the bottom is going to look more round. The top is kind of round, it's curved, but it's not as pronounced. It's a little flatter up on top. So that's how you know that you've got the right piece. And there's only guides at the top for this, no guides at the bottom, but that's all we really need to get this into place. So throw a little bit of glue on there and just pop it right into that area with the guides and just make sure that it's nice and straight as well. Okay, there we go, just like that. And again, find the other piece here that's more round at the bottom and a little more flat on top. The flat part's going to go towards the top, just like that. And again, just use those guides there to help you. And there we go, just like that. Okay, now we have these two pieces here. They're flat on one side and kind of have like a single scallop or a little bump, okay? Now this, we want to make sure that it's nice and flush all the way up to that little tab. So if it helps, bring your tab up, okay, so that it's flat, and just align it so that it's flush with that little tab there, these tabs here. Okay, so let me get some glue on this. All right, and as I said, bring your tab up so it's at a 90-degree angle to the handle, and just kind of use that as a guide, and then pop that right into place. There we go, just like that. because once we get this into the top of the box, we don't want there to be a border at the bottom of that. We want it to be nice and flush with the actual top to the box. Okay, get your glue on the other piece here. Same thing, just bringing up this tab, creating a 90-degree angle. Whoops. And just kind of use that to push that up against the tab there so that you know how low it should go. And then press that into place. Okay, so it should look like that. There we go. All right. So we did it on one side. We can go ahead and do it again on the other side and get our handle all done. Okay. Again, just use the little guides that we created here for you. And just get that nice and centered within the guides. Here we go. Press that down. It's going to be a lot easier the second time around. And again, make sure that you grab the right piece. It's a little bit more round at the bottom, flatter on top. And using the little guide here, get that lined up, nice and centered. So I know there's a scallop little edge on one side, but you can use your imagination and just kind of visualize that there's a nice even border on both sides here. Okay. All right, there we go. One more piece here. And then we'll do the bottom. I need a little extra glue here on the bottom. I kind of, it's not as giving there to that piece. There we go, perfect. There we go. All right, so there's that, and then again, these two little small pieces here. Get your glue on those. You're gonna lift that bottom tab up to create a nice 90-degree angle here relative to the handle. And just push that down all the way until it hits the little tab, and then that's as far down as it's gonna go. Make sure it's centered, and then just press it down. Okay, and the last one. And we're not noticed, I don't know if you noticed, that we didn't really do any inking on this because I don't think they really need it. There's a lot going on with the patterns, and they're kind of, I don't know, they're not rustic, they're not vintage, but they are kind of vintagey, but in a classy sort of way where I don't think the inking is really necessary. Okay, so there's our beautiful handle all ready to go. And while we're working on that, we may as well work on the top of the actual lid of the box, or the bag, I should say. And in order to do that, this one's a little bit easier actually. I've got this piece here. You can see that there's little slits cut into this. This is going right on top like this. Doesn't matter which way you do it. It's basically the same thing. It's a symmetrical piece. So we're gonna get that glued down first. Okay, so let's get our glue on this piece. Whoops. Yeah, it's really dry, and it's been really cold here in Chicago still. I'm looking at the 10-day forecast, and there's no end in sight. But the reason I mention that is because I feel like when it gets cold and the humidity drops, this glue just dries really quick. So you gotta act quick. Okay. All right. So just line it up with the slits. I guess that would be the first thing to look at, as far as making sure you got the placement right, and then the rest of it will pretty much fall into place. Okay. So just work your finger around the perimeter here. Make sure that it's nice and flush with, in my case, the blue paper. And if you've got a little area here that just didn't get enough love, grab a scrap piece of paper, throw some glue on it, and just stick it in between the layers and paint it on the underside of whichever piece is sticking up, whatever section. And I got a little too much glue there. Now, the problem was I got glue on both sides of that little strip, and that's what you don't want to do. But that's fine. You can always rub it off for the most part. It'll come off nicely. Okay, so there's that. Now, we've got this large piece here. Now, we do have a second layer for this. Okay, but this is actually going to go on the inside. It's just to kind of thicken it up because we're going to be tying a little tassel to this. And we don't want it to rip the cardstock, so we're going to kind of double up the layers here just to reinforce it a bit and just increase its lifespan. I mean, it should withstand the test of time if you're careful with it. And also, depending on how strong your magnet is, watch out for that as well. We've prototyped and tested, and we're actually using the strongest magnet we found because it works really well. But if you're not careful, that magnet's so strong, you may rip your paper, so be careful with that. Your magnet may not be that strong, so it's probably not going to be an issue. But all right, anyway, I just glued that to the inside here to double it up. You don't want to put it on the outside because it's going to raise it up, and we don't want that. Okay, now we've got this little panel piece here. It's going to go just like this. Okay, there is going to be an even border going all the way around. So keep that in mind when you go to place this. And get that glue out to those scallops there. Make sure that you don't have anything lifting up or raising away from our main structure here. Again, make sure you've got a nice even border all the way around and get that placed as accurately as possible. And just press that down. There we go. That looks perfect. I'll flip it over to the other side and grab this smaller little flap piece overlay. And let's get that glued into place. There we go. Just gonna hit that a little bit with a finger. And again, this one, I want to make sure there's a nice even border all the way around. Get it nice and centered, nice and level. And I'll just pop that down. And it's pretty spot on. Might not be completely level, but I can't really tell. All right, so that's that. And now what we're going to do, may as well. All right, so we can just glue our handle into place here. So we're going to take these tabs and squeeze them together, make them flat. We're going to stick them through these little slits here at the top. And you can see what that looks like there. Okay, and we're going to fold these, we're going to spread them out, fold them out like that, and just glue those into place. And we've got a little liner piece that we're going to use to cover up these little tabs to make it look nice. And when you put these in, make sure they're all the way down, and then just push the tabs into place. Just spread them out. You can actually put this down on your surface and press down like that. Okay, and then you can see how the tabs are going to look. And we've got this piece here that we're going to glue right here to cover this all up and make it look really nice. And also, I'm just going to kind of stir it up a little bit for us. So, let's get our glue on this piece here. Cover up those tabs, make it look nice. Get it nice and centered, make sure it's nice and flush all the way around. And you can put that down on your surface, push down like so. There we go. Look at that. Okay, that's pretty much it. Now we're going to put some glue on the back of this once the main structure is all ready to go. That's going to hold it down, and then here's your little opening and closing. Speaking of which, to hold that all together, we've got some magnets, and I'm going to get my glue gun. All right, so we are pretty much on the last leg here, and we've got 5 main pieces here that make up the structure. There's a liner, and then there's also a top, and of course this is either the front or back, depending on what you designate it as. So we're going to fold everything at the tabs here, at the score marks, okay? And then these are your two sides. You can see there's a little B that is etched into the bottom there, and that's just designating that that is going to be the base or the bottom of the handbag here, where the smaller tab is actually going to be the top. Okay, so that's just a little helpful little tidbit to make sure that we don't screw it up. Okay. All right. So what we're going to want to do, we're actually going to construct this. We're going to get all 4 pieces connected just to make things easier. Now again, there's 2 pieces like this, these rectangles. One of them has a little L cut into it. That's your liner. That's going to go inside. We're going to deal with that one later. We want the one that does not have the L on it. And we're just going to connect the 4 sides together to kind of make this all one piece, and then we're going to form it. Okay, so what we want to do is grab your glue and just start putting it on one of these tabs here. I'm going to go pretty easy on the inside, and then get a nice fine, semi-thick line right out to the edge so that we have a nice clean edge. Okay, and then you can use your surface here to help you make sure that these get aligned nicely. Okay, just make sure that it's nice and flush there along the side, and then push that down and just hold that in place for a moment while it sets. Okay, there we go. So that was a nice clean connection there. Beautiful. All right, so there's one section, and we can go over to the other side. Do the same thing. Let's get our glue on this tab. You have to go crazy here, just a little bit, and then a nice semi-thick line of glue here towards the bottom that we're going to take and just spread out nice and even along the bottom here, right up to that very edge. Okay, and just like we did, let's get that lined up, make sure that it's nice and aligned on both sides. And that's about that right there. And then just push that over and press. And I'm going to flip this over onto itself and just kind of take a look at this seam here, see if we did a good job there. And just press that down, make sure it sticks. And this one's going to be, if you did the silver one, that one had more of a round shape, so there were more tabs. This one's going to be a little bit easier on us, I think, because part of it is straight and then it curves. So this one should go together a little bit easier. All right, so now next section here, we're going to go off to the side, and technically, if you get it right, this tab should not overlap on either of these tabs, but we still want to make sure that we get it nice and centered. So let's get our glue on the tab here, and then again, a nice little, just a smidge thicker line there of glue right up to the edge. Okay, I'm going to dab that a little bit, and you know, if you have a little grid on your work surface, that would help as well in making sure that everything's nice and lined up. Pardon my head here for a second, and that looks pretty centered. Just fold that over, and then I can tell that I'm a little bit off, so I'm going to fold this onto itself and just take a look from the side here. I do need to nudge that in. It's sticking out a little bit too much, but that's okay. And that's why we do this, just to make sure that we get everything nice and lined up, and that looks good. Okay, so that is nice and in place, and you can see that the tabs are not overlapping. And that is perfect. All right, so we can move on over to the other side here and get our last section in place. And again, nice little bit of a thicker line of glue there at the bottom. Spread that out nice and thin out to the edge. And let's align this with this section here. That looks pretty good. And fold that over. Now it's kind of pushing down. What's going on here? Oh, I had it tucked under. That's why. I'm going to fold this in on itself and just flip it like this. I can tell again that I didn't have it lined up perfectly. So I'm gonna give this a nudge to make it nice and flush with the side. There we go. This edge should be nice and flush. There we go. Okay. All right, so we've got all the components, all the sides of this thing together. Now I want to be a little more patient here with this piece. It wanted to kind of come apart. I'm going to let that set a little bit before we move on. Speaking of which, that we're doing that, let me grab my magnets. Okay, while this is setting, I've got these really powerful magnets here. You can see how much they either push each other away or connect. They're really strong. And we've included in your cutouts, in your files, just some circles to kind of stick between the magnets to make it a little bit easier for them to come off. Now, if your magnets are not that strong, then you don't need to worry about this. But what I would do, let's see if I can get this on camera this time. No, it's a little off, but I'll show you here in a second. And come on. Oh, geez. Just a little bit of hot glue on there, and then grab one of these and pop it on there. You're going to want to use hot glue to adhere this to the actual handbag when it's done. I don't think that this Scotch glue is going to do very well on this metal, on the actual magnet surface. So I suppose you could put, well, no, you want to put the paper on both pieces of the circle here. There's two that I'm gluing together. You want to put them both on the same side. It's going to add a little bit of thickness between the two magnets, and it's going to make it easier for the magnets to come apart if your magnets are really strong. If your magnets are not that strong, then you probably can skip this piece and just use these as little scrap pieces or do whatever you want with them. But in my case, I am using 2 layers of paper on top of my magnet just to kind of weaken it a little bit. Okay, so again, I'm just putting a little bit of hot glue on one side where I'm going to put the first piece of paper and just press that down. And your magnet also may be a different size than ours. Obviously, if the paper is bigger than your magnet, that's okay. If it's smaller, you can always resize it. Just grab a ruler and then just resize the little circle. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with how to use a basic shape in your software, whether it be Design Space or Silhouette. You can just use a basic shape to create that circle and put it onto your magnet. Okay, so I'm just going to put this last piece on and give these just a little bit of time to set. We're going to use these at the end when everything else is already put together. So I've got my 2 magnets ready to go. Whoops, you see how strong those are. And we're ready to start putting this guy together. And we're going to do that by, well, what we're going to do is we're going to take these tabs and we're actually going to glue them to the face of our bag here. And it's just going to make it a lot easier to do everything, really. So with that said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by putting glue on this tab here. And you don't have to be perfect with it. And actually, you know, the more sparse you can be with it, the better. You can do it this way if you want, since it is flat, and just do it in the air. But I prefer to just tuck that tab that I have the glue on underneath and then just push. Use my right hand here to push up against that so that, you know, it's pushing up against this piece here. Well, this one anyway. While I'm pushing down with my fingers to get the 2 sections to kind of bond. Okay, I'll show you what that looks like here. There you go. You can see the tab on the face there. And then we're just going to glue these tabs down. So I think it helps to just pop them out. I think we can get all of these done in one shot here. So I'm going to put 1 drop of glue on each of those 6 tabs. And then let me move this out of the way so you can see better. Just tuck those tabs under, push with this hand so that it's nice and flush around that surface. So it's following the shape, and then push down with your finger to help them kind of bind and bond. And then this last one here, absolutely keep your finger there for a few extra seconds so that it really gets a good grip. We don't want that coming loose. Okay. There we go. And, well, you can see here that these two tabs didn't really stick. That last one, I gave that one some extra love, and it's really stuck in place. So I'm just going to go back, add a couple dots of glue to those two tabs. And, you know, it might help with this is a dowel, because you can really get a lot of pressure, a whole hand's worth of pressure onto those little areas instead of just a finger's worth of pressure. And that's really going to help it bond nicely. Okay. All right, so that's that. And all we're going to do now is the same thing all the way around. So I'm going to go on this side now, and I'm going to glue this side down like that. So let's grab some glue and put it on this long tab here, just like that, and tuck it under. And I'm pushing inward with my right hand here, while I'm pushing down with my fingers here to get these two pieces and sections to connect nicely for me. Okay. There we go. And you can see the end result there. Now, I can take this and pull my tabs down and get my dots of glue onto those tabs there. You can see the little dots of glue on the 6 tabs. And we're going to fold those under. We're going to tuck them underneath like that. And then we're going to swap hands here. I'm going to push in with my left hand while I'm pushing down with my fingers here. Again, a dowel, well, in this case, since I'm trying to do 6 tabs at once, a dowel is probably not going to be very helpful. But hold that last tab in place and don't let go until it's fully set. Okay. Give that a second, an extra couple seconds to really set before we move on. And there we go. Okay, so you can see what that's starting to look like. Now, it may be a good idea, you can probably put your liner in now just to make it easier. So let's do that. I don't usually do that, but I'm going to do it this time. Let's just throw a little bit of glue around the perimeter here and just a little dab inside. Pop that liner in. This is the piece that has the little L cut into it. And push that up against that far wall as far as it'll go. Don't destroy the wall, just push it a little bit. Okay, there we go. Perfect, and now we're going to flip all these tabs up. All right, and we're going to pop this in so that the tabs are on the outside of this piece, just like the one before. Okay. And we're going to do the same exact thing. We're just going to glue these tabs to the face. We can still get our hand in there. So that's going to make for some easy work here. All right, let's get this first tab accessible. Just throw a little bit of glue on there. It doesn't need to be perfect here. Just need enough to get it to hold. All right, and again, we're tucking this under. Sorry, that didn't look right. I'm going to tuck that under. Okay, and I'm going to push in from that side and push down from the inside. Make sure it's nice and flush. And just add that, continue adding that pressure and pushing down until it fully sets. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's done here. There we go. You can see that tab nice and flush up against that piece. And that just leaves these tabs here. So we'll glue these down. Dot, 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 dot. All right. And fold them over. Tuck them under. Use your hand inside there to push down on the tabs while using these fingers to kind of push this wall up against that shape that's flush with the table right now. And again, keep your finger right at that end tab there. We don't want that coming loose. That's helping really keep the shape of this thing. Okay, just hold that for an extra few seconds. That should be good, and there you go. And let's go over to this side now. Do the long tab first. Let's get some glue on there. Fold that over, tuck it under, and I'm going from this side this time. So I'm pushing with this finger here. You can use a dowel, you can use a dowel this way, whatever you want to do, while you push down from the inside to bind those two sections together. Okay, that should be good. That looks great. You can see that tab there. And that just leaves the remaining 6 tabs here. And again, we're just going to dot, 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 dot. Fold them over because we're going to tuck them under. So they're going underneath. You can see them there, they're going to go underneath. And I'm going to use my right hand to push that up against the main piece there that's on the surface of the table. And on the inside, I'm just kind of running my finger along that whole piece to get a nice connection and get these pieces to bind and set together nicely. There we go. I'm going to wait a few extra seconds here on this corner piece, but we should be in good shape here. And there we go. Okay, so that's that. And the top is looking good. All right, well, let me grab these pieces out from under here. They're almost ready to be put into use here. And all that's left to do on top is to kind of put this little finishing touch on top. So what we're going to do is start with just one tab. And we'll get that one in place first. Get your glue on that tab there. Get a nice little line right out to the edge. I might have went a little heavy there. And just spread that right out to the very edge there. Okay. And just find one end, one edge. Get that lined up nicely. And give that a little squeeze. You can actually put that on the surface of your table and use your table for leverage. Cool, perfect. That looks good. And then we just connect the rest of the sides here. You know, I'm going to flare these down so that when I kind of use my finger to paint that glue up to the edge, I don't get it on the other surface. The front and back, it's probably okay if you get a little bit there because that panel is going to cover the whole thing, but on the sides here, we don't have the luxury of it being forgiving, so we got to be careful. So I'm just going to paint that glue, and then I'm going to paint this out right up to the very edge here. There we go. You can see it never got on any of those surfaces there, which is exactly what we want. So I'm going to flare these up, so as I push down, grab some more of that surface area initially, and I'm going to work on the side opposite of the side that is already anchored and get that in place first. Make sure it's nice and centered, and just kind of squeeze it like you're making the edge of a pie crust. Just like that. And do your best to get that lined up as accurately as possible. Once it sets, you know, and the glue dries, because the structure is the same color, if you're off a tad, no one's gonna notice. Your recipient's definitely not gonna notice. They're gonna be so in awe by the fact that you made them a clutch out of paper that they're not even gonna notice those little nuances. I have a little bit of an area here that I think I just want to kind of clean up a bit because it's just not sitting as flat as I want it to. Right here, it's just kind of raising up. I'm going to just grab a scrap piece of paper. This is from a previous purse, and I'm just going to take that and just stick it in between these two pieces here and just paint a little bit of glue right along this perimeter and press that down in those little areas that I feel don't have the best contact, and give it a little extra love so it's nice and polished. There we go. All right, so there's our structure. It actually came out perfect. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna put our face and our back on here, and you can see how those are gonna go on. Those should fit perfectly as well, and they do. So we put our face and our back on. We've got some side panels that are gonna go on here. We're almost done here, guys. Ladies, my beautiful ladies. All right, so start by getting our glue onto these tabs here. You definitely want to, I wouldn't glop it on, but you definitely want to get a little bit on there, because I'm going to take this and I'm going to flatten this out with my finger and get it right up to the edge. And because it's a lot of surface area, if you go too thin, it's just going to dry up on you. So try to give it a little extra glue. And then also, of course, we're going to need some here in the center. But I'm just going to take my finger and quickly run it across the very edge here, get it right out to the very edge. And, you know, I don't freak out about this kind of stuff anymore, because I know that even if it doesn't stick, I can always go back in and fix it. So it doesn't matter if you put the front or the back on at this point. We can designate what the front or back is going to be later on. But get it matched up nicely, and then just run your fingers along the perimeter, give it a nice soft pressure, pushing down to try to get those corners and those ends and those seams to connect together nicely. And again, don't worry if it's not perfect. You can always go back in and give each little section and a little extra love if we need to. Okay, and that actually came out pretty good. I'm not ready to take a look at it yet. I'm going to keep pushing down while it's still wet. And yeah, I'd say that's actually pretty spot on. That looks good. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. That's the back. Now let's do the same thing on the front. Let's get our glue onto these tabs here. I can see that that's going to need more love. Whoa. My glue bottle is really testing me today. It's like, I'm going to be inconsistent and see what you do about it. And I'm just like, whatever, glue. I can handle you. Oh yeah, see, this is going to... Haha, I win. I win, glue. All right. All right, clean that off. Just get that off my fingers, and same as last time, just get it nice and centered. And there we go. Make sure it's nice and aligned at the top, nice and flush with the bottom. Then run your fingers along the edges here. Make sure you're kind of, don't push down too hard. You don't want to dent it, but enough pressure to where it'll meet that other piece and sit nice and flush, so we don't have to go in and paint anything with some glue if it doesn't stick. I got one little area here that I probably will need to do that too, though. Yeah, maybe a couple areas actually. That's okay. Not a big deal. I'd rather take my time with it and get it right. I'm just grabbing another piece of scrap paper. Sometimes I talk faster than I can think and I just mumble. All right, so there's that little area there that maybe I didn't get enough glue on, so I'm just going to paint a little bit of glue into that area. And there it is. Almost got it. Not quite though. All right, just push that down and just kind of hold that in place until it's set. It'll be nice and flush. It'll look more polished. And then just while I'm doing that, just kind of taking a look around the perimeter, see if there's anything else that might need some of my attention. And I don't think there is. I think everything else pretty much worked out. Okay. All right, so there it is. There's the front. All right, now we've got our little side pieces here. Here's your side piece here. And what we're gonna do is we need to get glue on this first and foremost. I'm gonna just fold this a little bit and bend it so it's kind of like bent like that so that it goes on a little bit easier for us, especially up at the top. And when you apply your glue to this, you're gonna wanna make sure that you get that glue right up to the very edge at the top and at the bottom, okay, so that we don't have any of that peeling off. And then the inside, get a little bit in there as well. And here's what I mean by making sure you get that glue out to the bottom. Like literally, I'm kind of spreading it so that it literally is hitting the very edge here. And this glue is just drying real fast today. So hopefully this will work out for me. I'm sure it will. I'm gonna start at the top here, okay, because this panel needs to be flush with the top. So it's kind of touching that little rectangle with the hole in it. We want that to be flush with that. And then kind of when you're pulling this down, make sure that it's nice and taut, nice and tight up against the side, okay, so that you don't have a gap there anywhere. And you're going to want to focus holding and kind of maintaining a little bit of a pressure up at the top here and at the bottom. The rest of it should just kind of get a hold with the rest of the glue that's there. I just don't want this panel sticking up at all. I want it to be nice and flush against the side, and I think we did a pretty good job there. Except for this little area here. You can see I didn't get enough glue on it, but that's okay. The bottom is nice and set, so I can just grab my little scrap piece of paper here and make sure there's no glue on the other side, because you can use that to kind of rest that against the surface of the main structure without worrying about getting any glue on it. So I got a little extra glue painted in there, and I'm just going to press that down and hold that so that it sits nice and flush for me. Okay, there we go. We're going to repeat the same thing on the other side, and then we've got the little corner pieces here to put on, and then put our lid on, as well as our magnets, and we're pretty much done. Okay, so that looks good. That's sharp. All right, again, we're going to kind of curl this a little bit, round it out, so it's easier to, it'll just stick better. I don't want to, usually when I want to train things, I'll take my dowel and just kind of run it like that. I don't even think that's necessary though, because the slope on this, it's so subtle that we don't need to overdo it if we don't need to. All right, so just like we did last time, let's focus and concentrate on making sure that the top and bottom gets a good distribution of glue all the way out to the very edges, the inside. Obviously, we don't want those pulling away either, but they're not as important. And I'm gonna take my finger and just kind of brush that all the way up to the very edge so that it really sticks. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're gonna take that next panel, same as we did on the other side, start at the top, get that glued down, and just kind of wrap it along the side here. And that is what your end result should look like. Okay, so we've got the main structure pretty much done. Now we've got 4 of these pieces. They look like half circles. I'm using a DCWV paper, and it's got a white core, so I did take and kind of ink the edge with a little bit of copper just to hide that, okay? But these pieces are gonna get glued on like this. So we're just gonna line those up so that the bottom, where the circle's cut in half, is flush with the bottom. And then obviously the edge, where it's folded, is, you know, right on top of the main fold here. And that's all we really need to do. So let's get our glue on these pieces here. Just do a little bit on both sides. Try to get it out to the edge as close as you can. I don't want to overdo that though, because I'm afraid that if I squeeze, or when I put this on, it may squeeze out and then look unsightly. And these are little detailed areas that I don't want to ruin. Okay, so just pop that up against the corner there. Make sure it's flush with the bottom. And just hold that for just a moment while it sets. And then there we go. That's it. Okay, so we're gonna go around and do this 3 more times, to polish that off. And then finally, we're going to put our lid on along with our magnet, and we're done. I think this one's easier than the silver one we just did, that first one that I showed you. I'll show you here in a second. All right, so got that on. I'm going to hold that down on the very ends here, very edges. Here's the silver one. This one's a little more round. And so, I mean, you know, you've got a round edge on this one, but this one's kind of round from top to bottom. Not hard at all. It's just this one was easier, I think. Okay, so there's our little corner piece. All right, 2 more. I think the best thing to do with the magnet on this one, because the face of this thing has a little spot, a little circle already kind of designated for where the magnet goes, we're going to glue the magnet down to that section first, and then just kind of use that to automatically position the magnet onto the top of our little evening bag. All right, so that's that. Again, just making sure that it's nice and flush with the bottom, nice and, you know, making contact with the very edge here to get that in place, and then we will be done. Okay. Again, kind of just using the corner as a guide, and then also running my finger along the very bottom to make sure that this piece is nice and flush with the main structure here. Just hold that down for just a moment, and that'll be that. Oh, and we've got a nice little tassel that we're going to add to this as well. I think we got these tassels at our local craft store. Let's say it was at Michael's. And we're just going to tie that to the little loops here, or little holes here. Just tie them on there, however you want to tie them. Okay, so there's our, remember this is our front. Okay, you know what, let me get the magnet on the front here. I'm going to just throw a little bit of hot glue. Oh, calm down there. A little bit of hot glue on my magnet here. And get that nice and centered. Okay. And then what you can do is you can grab your other magnet. When we're ready, we'll put a little bit of hot glue right onto this magnet here. And then when we go to close this, it'll just kind of pop into position. So we can kind of take a test drive here. Let's see what that's going to look like. Yep. So that's going to end up somewhere around here, which is fine. That's all we need to do. Okay. Okay, now as far as putting the lid on, what we want to do, and you'll notice that on the back here, there are some little marks to help you with the alignment. You can definitely use those marks, and that's fine, but also, in case you were off as far as the assembly goes on any of those pieces, you just want to make sure that visually that looks nice and centered. Okay, that's pretty much the most important thing, is it visually centered. If the assembly went together, you know, seamlessly, then those guides are going to be very relevant, and they'll be a good way to kind of ensure that you have everything aligned properly. But if something happened during your assembly and it wasn't perfectly centered, then of course just, you know, use your eyes to help you, you know, center this. Also, again, when we put the lid on, make sure that this is the front. The front has the longer flap here. Don't do it backwards. Okay. I am going to use the guides here because I think I did a pretty good job with my assembly. Get that nice and centered and just press that down and hold. Make sure that it's nice and flush with the top, and then just hold this down and let it set before we do anything else. Give this ample time to dry. Okay, but you can already kind of see on the other camera here what this is turning out to look like, and I'm really happy with it. The assembly went together perfectly, actually. Okay, I'm going to put this down. Well, is it dry yet? Do I risk it? No. I'm going to be patient. I don't have to redo anything. Okay. I think we're pretty good here. All right, so Again, to get the magnet on, make sure you got your... All right, now as far as the magnet goes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get both the magnets on top of each other, and I'm going to throw a little bit of... This is off camera real quick, my bad. What is that? I don't know what that was. All right, so I put a little bit of hot glue on the magnets that's on top of the magnets already there, and I'm going to close the lid, make sure it's nice and centered, and just press that down so that the hot glue takes. Okay, and that way it's in the right spot, and we know it's in the right spot. The hot glue should be dry, and there you go. So we've got our other magnet in place already, and you can hear it. There we go, closes really nice. And all that's left to do is just tie your little tassel. Whatever tassel you have will be fine. Just tie it through the little loops here, little holes I should say. Yeah, you probably want to put the string in through the front so that the knot is in the back. Obviously, Leo. Okay. Just like that, and I'm not going to tie it right now. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the yellow one or the orange one here. You can see what that's going to look like when it's all said and done. Open it up. Good size for a little gift card, some jewelry, whatever it may be, and there she is. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button. If you make this or our silver or our, there's one more that you're going to see here in a little bit. If you make any of them, we'd love to see them. So join us in the official Dreaming Tree group on Facebook by doing a search for Dreaming Tree group on Facebook, and join myself and the 10,000 plus dreamers in that group who inspire us daily. So I hope you guys enjoyed the process, and as always, I look forward to crafting with you again. Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.